Hello everybody and welcome back to Chris Bosch Props. Today I wanted to do a video sharing with you guys how to build your very own Robocop suit. As of late, I've been getting a lot of comments because of my recent Comic-Con video from newcomers on how do I have one of those? I cannot believe it's 3D printed. Where do I get started? I want one. I want to build one. I just don't know how. Well, I know a lot of my older videos get drowned out and I have like 50,000 videos on how to build a Robocop suit and it gets rather confusing. So I thought I would do this one video, guys, to kind of give you a general outline of what to expect, the things that you will need and the skills necessary to build one of these Robocop suits, and then you guys can really decide if this is something you want to do. I'm not going to leave anything out. I'm going to be frank. I'm going to be honest on what it takes. So let's get into it and let's start with what you will need first. Now the first thing you will need, guys, is a 3D printer. This is the tool necessary to take that inanimate object out in digispace or the cloud or whatever you want to call it and make it a physical reality. This 3D printer will take that and create a physical object for you. For instance, the files for my Robocop suit and this Robocop helmet are not in reality. They are in virtual reality. And you got to bring those files into the real world, and you will need this 3D printer to make your Robocop suit a reality. So guys, you probably have been looking on Amazon or eBay or whatever, and there's all kinds of 3D printers to choose from at various price points. Now, I don't have enough time in this video to recommend exactly which printer you'll need to buy. You'll have to do the research, but I will leave a couple recommendations below of where you might want to start with. I 3D printed my Robocop suit with a Creality CR10 and a CR10S. Those printers by now are kind of obsolete, but if you could find one for really cheap, say on Marketplace, it's still a great printer to make your Robocop suit a reality. But there's a company called Elegoo that is really starting to do some really awesome things. They've kind of copied and took what Creality did and made it a lot more user-friendly. So those will probably be the printers I'll be recommending to get you started. The next thing you will need, guys, is filament. And a lot of it, unfortunately. You will probably need about 10 rolls of filament to print your Robocop suit. 10 to 15, give or take, because you want to account for failures. And if you're new to this, unfortunately, guys, you are going to have print failures. It's not the end of the world. It's normal even for the most experienced. They do happen. You'll have to learn on your own how to orient your prints and whatnot to get the prints you want. But you will need filament. Now, what is filament? This is the plastic that this 3D printer will melt down and print thousands of layers to bring this into the real world, guys, okay? So the filament you're looking for, I'm just going to give you what I use. I use Sunlu PLA Plus filament, 1.75 millimeter. It's awesome stuff. I'm going to save you the hassle of having to try all kinds of other filaments. This is the one I use. I love it. It hasn't failed me yet, and it's really, really cheap. You can go on their website and get it for about $13.99 a roll. That's really good, guys. Just remember, you're going to need about 10 to 15 rolls to get you started. Okay, now we need the files. The files that I used are made by a guy named Asin, and his username on CG Trader is Two Night Cinema. I will link his files below. They are the best and the most accurate Robocop suit files to date. As you've seen in many of my videos, those are the files I have always used. And for the past 2 Robocop suits that I've built, those are the files that I use. So if you guys are looking for an amazing, accurate to the movie Robocop suit, those are the files you're going to want. Make sure also with his files that you get the more accurate upper arms. The upper arms that come with his files are less accurate. They look great, but they're not as accurate. So I'll make sure to link the more accurate upper arms as well below. Okay guys, so the next thing we need is a software. We need a software to take our 3D model and to slice it into thousands of layers so this 3D printer can print it. Now, the software I've always used has been Simplify 3D. I've used it since 2016. I've started to kind of dabble with Cura, and I'm actually really falling in love with Cura. But Simplify 3D just works, but it costs $150. So it's not going to be the first thing I recommend unless you want to pay for it. Cura is free, and it kind of is doing everything that Simplify 3D does, and it's making it even better because they constantly update it. So for software, when it comes to slicing these 3D models up, Cura is what you're going to want to start with. There's also Prusa Slicer, which I've heard is really good, so you'll have to do the research and figure out what you'll need, but you do need a software to turn this 3D model into a code that this 3D printer can recognize when you put it on your SD card to get you started printing each individual file. Now, as you can see here, this is a smaller 3D printer. This is the Ender 3, the Creality Ender 3. Although you can print a whole entire Robocop suit on this 3D printer without too much issue, you will need a software to slice up the model so that it will fit on that print bed. As you can see here, this helmet comes in about 5 or 6 different pieces. Well, you're going to have to cut some of those pieces up so that this printer can print each file properly, so you're not hanging off the bed and losing your file. The software that I use is an old software called NetFab, but there are tons of softwares. You have Mesh Mixer. You can even trick Cura into cutting your files up if you learn how to do it properly. We're not going to do a how-to on how to do that, but just keep in mind I will link NetFab below. That is a software that you'll need to go into to cut your models up to fit on whatever print bed size that you pick. The bigger the print bed, the bigger the objects you'll be able to print in one piece. But just remember guys, bigger is not always better. Sometimes printing some of your pieces in smaller pieces, it saves you on filament, it saves you on supports, and you're not going through rolls left and right. So keep that in mind. Bigger is not always better. You're gonna have to find the happy medium. Okay guys, we have all our softwares, we have our 3D printer, we have all of our filament. Now, what is this 3D printing thing, guys? The best way that I could simplify it to you is your 3D printing model kits. You remember those little car model kits with all those little pieces that you pop out of the plastic, and you have to glue each one together, and then you kind of have to do the body work and the paint. That's what I want you to think about when it comes to cosplay with 3D printers. That you're just basically printing big model kits, an extra large life-size model kit. That's what this Robocop suit is. You're gonna have tons of pieces laid out, and the first thing that you're gonna have to do once you 3D print all your pieces is you're gonna have to glue them together, or you're gonna have to PLA weld them together. Now what I do is I super glue each piece together until it's whole, until it's a whole piece. And I do that with each individual piece of the armor. You can also PLA weld each individual piece. Now this is basically just taking a soldering iron and melting the plastic together and fusing it. Both work just fine. You'll just have to pick which one you want to do. After you've glued all your pieces together, now you're going to have to learn how to do body work. You're going to have to use Bondo red spot putty, Bondo plastic metal, and Duplicolor filler primer, or whatever filler primer you want to use, or whatever material you want to use to smooth it out. You're basically going to become a body work specialist. You might be able to even get hired at a car body shop. That's how good you're going to become at body work, guys. I don't know if you've seen one of my previous videos on the dark side of 3D printing. Go ahead and watch it. That's just one day of many hours of sanding and body work that I did. So keep that in mind, guys. You are going to have to master body work and smoothing out, because when these 3D printed pieces come out, they have tons of print lines on them. As nice as that look, guys, there are tons of print lines that you'll have to smooth out. and get it to your liking so that you can turn it into the Robocop suit that you have seen in my video. I cannot tell you how many days. I cannot tell you how many hours. I mean, there's rough estimates out there, but for me, it is countless hours and it is countless days that it will take to bring your Robocop suit into the real world and get it smooth and awesome looking, okay? It took me on my first Robocop suit in 2016 about 2 years to get finished. Now you have to remember my skills were not as good as they are now, and I was going to school and there were some things in between, but it took me roughly 2 years. And I know a lot of you have the same issues, same problems, school, work, and whatnot. It took me about 2 years. My second Robocop suit, when my skills were a lot better and I kind of knew what to expect, I knew what to do, it took me about 1.5 years, give or take. This last suit I did took me about 8 months, and that's just because I already had the midsection, the gloves, and the soft parts already casted from molds that I made on the previous suit. If I had to do all that again, it probably would have took me over 1 year as well. Another skill you're gonna have to learn how to do is you're gonna have to learn how to spray paint. You're gonna have to learn how to airbrush. If you want an accurate looking Robocop suit, you're gonna have to learn those skills. The paints that I used on this last suit was Creality metallic aluminum, metallic silver. I used Testors paints that I airbrushed on and highlighted different and various parts of the suit. You'll have to learn those skills. There's tons of videos on YouTube of how to get started with airbrushing and how to use a spray can. So that is a skill you will have to learn, guys. I know I keep repeating myself, but there is emphasis. If you've never done anything like this before, you're gonna have to learn them, guys, okay? And lastly, the cost. How much does it cost? Well, I told you you're gonna need about 10 to 15 rolls of filament at $13.99 a pop. You'll have to do the math on that. You'll have to buy filler primers. You'll have to buy sandpaper. You'll have to buy spot putties and all kinds of other things like webbing and snaps and buttons to make this suit wearable. It adds up. And especially if you don't have a 3D printer, you're gonna have to buy one. And if you don't have one and have to buy one, that's extra money. These are ranging anywhere right now for home use at about $200 to $500 depending on the size. So you have to kind of put that into your budget. The files go for about $100, I want to say. I'm not sure. You start adding all that up, I want to say your first suit, including your 3D printer, is going to cost you well over $1,000, okay? That's not very expensive when it comes to having to buy a real Robocop suit that someone has done. There's a guy named Fred Barton who has the molds to the original screen-used Robocop suit. If you were to contact him, that suit's gonna run you probably anywhere between $15,000 to $25,000, I'm guessing by this point. He doesn't put a price, but I remember the last time he had the price, it was roughly around $15,000. That was before COVID. Now that it's after COVID, I'm sure it's close to double. So remember, building this suit that's gonna look, if you put the time in, just as good as an original screen use suit, you're doing it for around $1,000, guys. That's pretty cheap in comparison to buying one for $15,000 to $25,000. There's also a guy back in the day named Bruce HANSING who had the HANSING Robocop suit, which was the closest thing that we were able to get to a Robocop suit at that point. And if you're lucky, you might find one of those for around $5,000 to $10,000, depending on who's selling it. And they're not very good quality, guys. Those HANSING suits are terrible. They don't really resemble the movie very much, unless you're just absolutely ignorant of what the Robocop movie suit looks like. It just doesn't have the movie presence of this suit and these files once you get them finished. The most expensive part of this suit, guys, I'm gonna be completely frank and completely honest, is your time. If you think this is just gonna be easy, you're wrong, guys. This is not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication, and it takes a lot of ambition. But don't be discouraged. I'm living proof that this can be done with a full-time job, with a wife, with kids. My first suit, my kids were still here, and it got done. If you want it, you will get it. If you're one of those types of people that are like, files please, and you don't really want to do the work and do the research, this suit's probably not going to happen for you, or any other suit for that matter. Okay, it's going to take work, it's going to take research, but thankfully in this present time with YouTube, there is so many content creators that have amazing tutorials. You have Frankly Built out there, you have Darkwing Dad out there, Uncle Jesse. There is just endless lists of content creators that can help you guys get started. You also have my channel. Now, I'm not extremely detailed on every little thing, but it does give you a general outline. It's a lot more than I had when I got started. So if I can do it, you can do it, guys. And I wish you well. If this is something you want, it is achievable. I hope this video helped you in giving you just that general outline and idea of what it takes. I apologize if I missed something, but yes, it is going to take a lot of time. I would just expect at least a year to 2 years to finish this Robocop suit, and that's even if you're committed. It's going to take countless days, countless hours to finish. Tons of sanding. If you don't like sanding, this is probably not for you. You are going to sand your life away. You're going to be a master sander, master at bodywork, guys. I'm telling you, that's just what this suit requires. And unfortunately, that is what 3D printing requires at this moment. It does not matter how good, how up-to-date your 3D printer is. There's a trendy printer on the market right now called the Bamboo, and from what it looks like a great printer, and it prints really, really fast. So that is also something you could look into, but in the end, regardless of how fast it prints and the slightly edged out better quality, the printer is still going to have print lines, and you're still going to have to do the body work, guys. So just keep that in mind, and whatever printer you buy, you're going to have to do the grunt work and the body work. I hope this helps, guys. I hope I didn't completely shatter your dreams, but I just wanted to have a reality check for some of you that I know it looks easy when you're looking at it and you're like, oh man, I can have that tomorrow. No, it's not going to happen. You're not going to have it tomorrow. If you start with this, it's going to take you at least a year or so to get it done, guys. So I hope this video helped you guys, and we're on to the next video, and thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it.